This is next level. Alright, no more messing around. Welcome back to the channel, guys. For those who haven't seen the channel, my name is Eric Johnson Jr. and I try to do all things racing here. So if you like that kind of content, feel free to hit that subscribe button down below. But jumping straight into this video, if you can't tell, I am so excited to get rolling on this. And first things first, I will say, if you haven't noticed, our camera quality got just a little bit better, and that's because through all this COVID shipping mess, we finally got the camera I've been waiting for, and it came in. So this is our new look for our videos, which I am super excited about because I think it's important to invest in these videos. It seems like a lot of people enjoy them, so I was happy to make them just a little bit better for you guys' enjoyment, along with a little bit of helping my OCD when it comes to how neat these things look. So anyways, besides that, this is going to be part 2 of our late model build. For those who didn't see our last video, we announced our 2022 plans, which is we are going to go pro late model racing, starting there, trying to get seat time and try a few different tracks out, moving from location to location in hopes of eventually maybe even moving up into supers at some point. So yeah, jumping into this video, I really just wanted to wait till I got this camera for you guys. I got the previous video out which showed the beginning processes of building our late model, and although some of you guys seem to enjoy that video, I thought it'd be best to wait a little bit longer until I got this camera to really go through and just show the different pieces of the puzzle that it really took to put this car together, because I feel like it would have been doing you guys wrong if I just kind of threw the videos together with something so big for this channel, which is that late model. So before I jump into it at all, I have to give a huge thank you to Racing Dynamics. Travis and Amanda Sharp, you guys have been amazing, taking care of me when I was up in Montana. And like I said, for anyone that sees our social media stuff separate from YouTube, you've probably seen a lot of our updates and saw how well and how quickly this car came together, and it just blows me away thinking back on it and seeing that car right in front of me when I'm in my shop now. It's just it's a weird feeling to know that something like that came together for me through so many wonderful people, and I just couldn't be more thankful. But anyways, we're gonna move into this video, get rolling on part 2, but I hope you guys enjoy, and like I said, feel free to hit that subscribe button down below and hit that like button if you enjoy this kind of content, because it has been a blast to make for you guys. Jumping straight into things, I will start showing some video here, but really as it came to the fine bits of this car, there was a lot of things that really needed to be looked at that we kind of oversaw when we first got the car, and that really had to do with the maintenance that was previously done on it. So when we got this car, we knew we wanted to go through everything and take everything apart. So when we ended that last video, the car fired up, we got that motor and tranny in there, everything hooked up. But that was just the beginning. We immediately started tearing into things, trying to pull all our spindles apart, get all the wheel bearings out and get those cleaned up, because first things first, we wanted to get some low drag bearings in there, get things clean, fresh grease in there, and reassemble those bits. And it made me feel a lot better getting in there, and first of all, learning how to do all that stuff properly with the best of the best. It was huge. Getting through things here. I got the engine brace bars up, got my hood pin fixed, got that overflow piece in, Got my spindles pulled off so we can get the new rotors and pads on there. Another good thing is I got our hot wire here coming off our ignition box up and out of the way from that exhaust. Get it good and mounted the chassis where it's not hanging down and can possibly get to that exhaust where it's real hot. So working through stuff here. Still got to get the hose on the radiator fitting. A few things, got to work a little bit on the ball joints, get them good to go. And just a lot of miscellaneous stuff, like I said. Got to rebuild our clutch line, different transmission than what the previous owners had. Got our water hoses on it. Yeah, just kind of working all the way around the car. But secondly, it was really reassuring to know for a car that I'm getting in for the first time, seeing all the individual pieces that put it together, it really helps me build some confidence with that car before I even sit in the seat, which is something I think is pretty hard to beat. While there may have been a few things we kind of had to dig for and really dig through to find the small issues, there was a few things that were just pretty obvious that we had to take care of as well. I mean, the body itself didn't present the most clean landscape, so I had to clean it up just for, you know, the reliability in that vinyl wrap that we're getting put on it in just a couple weeks. I wanted a nice smooth platform for that to stick to, so went ahead and just kind of patched up a few spots, whether it was the bumpers where I had to heat them up and really straighten them out with clamps, or even going through and where the hood pins connect to, there was a few spots that were ripped up, so I had to make some just small aluminum brackets for something to grab there. That way we get all of our hood pins in the right spot. But it was small things like that that kind of really pieced this thing together in my head, that made it, you know, that much better of a car than what it came into that shop as. It was just a lot of really small things that added up eventually, and so I'm really glad we took the time to slow down and go through each and every one of those. And so if we want to talk about straightening things out and getting it, you know, perfected, as I guess you could say, there was a few moments where I definitely got to learn how to do something new on my own, and this was one of them. Got to pull the rear bumper off the car, because when we got it, there was no doubt that this car had been definitely moved a few times. And so we had to pull the rear bumper off because it was bent. And when I mean bent, I don't mean dented, I mean bent. And so pulled it off, got it in the pipe straightener, or pipe bender I should say, my bad, and started playing with that to try to figure out the best way to get that into reshaped. And it took me a couple tries, but I think eventually we figured it out enough to where I was confident it was going to hold its shape well and have some good rigidity and give me a little bit more confidence than when it first came in there. Well, I thought I could get away with trying to lift the bumper with that piece of wood, but all I was doing was bending the bottom, so I'm going to have to remove the rear bumper cover. I was trying to avoid it, but no way around it, so I'm going to remove it, get that bumper off, and then we'll go from there. Well, I've never actually used a pipe bender before, but I got the rear bumper off. I got it fitted in here. And I think everything's pretty good to go. We got this big kink right in the middle of it, so I'm gonna try to punch that out here, but we'll see how this goes. Let's take a peek at that. Much better. Much better. See if I can just get that little bit of a bow. Much better. Thanks to this handy dandy fab cart that Travis has got himself put together here, we're able to get the door on and the back bumper on pretty quick. Door is nice and clean. And then look at that back bumper. It had huge bends all the way along it, and that's, besides that one little kink in the middle there, that's about all I can see as an imperfection on it. So happy to have that all hooked back up. That's out of our way. And yeah, that's just one thing that's closer on this car to being done. Really, now we're just waiting for parts. Alrighty, well, everything that I had planned was done. Back bumper straight in, back bumper back on, door back on, my radiator overflow routed. The other car in here, pulled some stuff apart on it, took the whole left front assembly off. So now we get to kind of look for small things to do on this thing until we get parts in. So now I'm gonna kind of look at, we had a gauge that was acting funny, so try to diagnose what the heck's going on there so we can get that figured out. And we should have all the parts we need for that. So besides all that mess, that's about it until we get parts. Then once we get our parts, putting the front assembly back together, the spindles, new brakes on, new bumper, getting my seat in, finalized. I think we're gonna do that later today, and then get the setup in it, and this thing should be ready to roll. Oh yeah, wheel bearings and ball joints, want to go make sure those are freshened up. But yeah, just small stuff like that, but the main internals are in, everything that's essential for running's in, and now we're just being picky. So that's definitely a good thing when it comes to race cars. While I was trying to diagnose my oil pressure gauge issue, I swapped out my oil pressure, the actual piece that goes into the motor, into the block. Still not getting a read, so it's not the sensor, it has to be the actual gauge itself. So I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can pull the switch panel, the front of it, or not the switch panel, the gauge panel, pull the front of it, and hopefully behind the gauge cluster, the plug just came loose on the back of the gauge. Hopefully I don't have to replace that whole gauge, but I'll take a peek here and hopefully I can figure that out. Apologize for the change of scenery here, but I had to jump locations. But I wanted to finish this out how we kind of started it when I was editing the video with kind of the face-to-face thing. So let's just keep rolling with it. Once I flew back out to Travis's for the second time, we jumped right back into things, and he was actually out of town for a bit, so I got to work with his son Bryson, who is a really fun guy to work with. Great sense of humor, and just like me, trying to learn as much as he can about the sport. So We both for the first time got to pull a rear end out of one of these cars. It took us kind of a little bit to figure out the best way to get things up and out of our way, but eventually going through enough zip ties and through quite a bit of trial and error, we figured it out. So we decided with the rear end, once we got it out of the car, it was probably best to actually go ahead and switch the internal gear, because what originally came with the car was the Gleason. And for those who aren't super familiar with the terms, the Gleason basically is a higher end rear end that takes a little bit more maintenance than most. And when I say a little bit, I mean quite a bit of maintenance. You're talking about every 600 laps or so you're rebuilding that rear end, and it's just a big money spender. And so for us, it just made more sense to swap over to a different internal rear gear. We ended up going to a locker, and so once we got the rear end, we sent it off to get rebuilt, and a few weeks later we got it back and tried to get it back up into the car. So when I was actually up there working this specific time, we were working a lot on some other stuff that Travis had to get done, because there was a lot of stuff he really had to get done in a small span of time. So tried to help him out with that as much as possible. But once he got back, I was actually able to dive into something that was fun for me and a little bit of a challenge on its own. But I actually got to work on setting up the shift linkage for our transmission, and the transmission that we were using for this car, we decided to go with the direct drive Falcon transmission. And so basically the reason going with that is it just takes a lot of weight off the rotating assembly. And with that direct drive, you actually have two shifters that are, one's for a low gear and one's for a high, and then one is for a reverse gear. So kind of hard to explain, but basically I had to set up two different levers inside the car with my own linkage, because previously in the car was just a regular 4-speed Jericho transmission. So I had a lot of fun trying to figure that one out, but it definitely did take me a little bit to get exactly where I was happy with it. Well, for the final time of this whole process, I am on my way to the airport for the one last time to head up to Travis's and finish up our late model, along with quite a few other projects that he's got going, so helping him out with those, but pretty much finishing up everything there is on that late model, which is pretty crazy to think in the time span we've had, to think this thing's been rebuilt like it has. So I'm super stoked, but we got to get out of here, and we should be able to get there with enough time in the day to get quite a bit done just today alone. So I'm looking forward to it, but let's get out of here and get to the airport.
There's a Ferris wheel down there.
So one of my favorite things about this whole entire build was the fact that I really got to play with the interior of the car to get it exactly how I wanted it. For those who have kind of seen the inside of our cars that we've raced in the past, especially the Baby Grand, you can really tell it's not fitted for somebody my size. The previous driver who drove the Baby Grand, they were actually over 6 foot tall and a much heavier set guy than I was. And so when we swapped into the Baby Grand, I kept the same seat, just added foam to the side underneath me, and then along with the cockpit, just did the best I could to fit it to me, but it was never ideal. And so with this car, really taking the time to go through and fine tune not only the seat to me, but the rest of the things inside the driver's compartment was just so nice and so comforting as a driver, something I've never really had before. So had our fun with it, but as you can see here, Travis and I went all in and actually tried to customize our own leg braces for the inside of the car with a little bit of inspiration off of what Corey LaJoy actually uses for his cars. And so Travis went to work, cut these out, and we got them exactly how I wanted them fit into my leg, and he went ahead, bead rolled them just so they had some more stability inside of them, and got them installed in the car. But these things came out awesome. I couldn't be more happy with what Travis did with them. And I'm sure they're gonna come in real handy once we get going on some different tracks. With the seat, we actually had to produce our own brackets for the back plate, and then we could use the left-hander seat brackets for the bottom to actually get the seat lifted a little bit and forward the amount that we needed. So Travis went to work on those as well for me, and this is just one more example of the kind of things he was doing for me that without his experience, it probably would have never got done on this car. Having his supervision on this build was probably the best tool I could have asked for, because things like this that were just done properly instead of however I probably would have came up with throwing it together. It's nice to know that, especially on the safety side of things, because that is what so many people, especially my family, are concerned about. This car is a 11 out of 10 on safety, so super happy with that. I really want to show you guys as much as possible when it comes to this car, but obviously this video would be way too long if I showed you every single detail, and it's just not ideal. So I apologize if there's not everything you want to see in here, but please feel free to just drop a comment down below. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. You guys know ever since I started my baby grand, no matter what it is on the car, I am transparent and I show you guys, just because I know there's people out there trying to learn just like me, and if I can be any help to that, that makes me beyond happy. So besides that, we jumped into a few new things once I got back for the first, or got back to Travis's for the last time for this specific build, and I jumped into actually another car which we announced while I was there was going to be driven by Austin Herzog. Herzog's a guy that Travis has worked with a little bit in the past and is looking to have a pretty bright future, so super cool to be working with him at the Racing Dynamics shop, and excited to see what he can do. But I got, for the first time, jumped under the body and started assembling and hanging a body for the first time on my own. So big shout out to Brian Herzog for all the supervision and tips and tricks on this as I was going along. He definitely lent me quite a bit of a hand as I was needing it, but this was a really fun experience for me. Getting to see the bodies hung and assembled is something I've never seen, especially on a big car. With our small cars, it's all one-piece fiberglass bodies, and kind of like a funny car, if you can think of it, with drag racing. So building these bodies piece by piece was actually really fun. It was like an adult Lego set for somebody that's into race cars, and if you get the chance to do it, I definitely recommend it. And it makes me a lot more confident, especially thinking about damage in the future. With these late models, it's a lot more common to have little fender benders on track, and to be able to know how easy it is to just pop off a piece and pop one on if we really have to. Definitely takes a little bit of fear out of my eyes, that's for sure. Although I'm coming to the end of the video, I had to jump in here and just bring up a few things that we found that I guess you could say shocked us. That was about the worst pun I could probably come up with, but as we were working on this thing, we pulled off the front shocks, and both of them were completely bent. Left front wouldn't even sit on the shock dyno, it was that bad. But there was one other thing I kind of want to show you guys, which we just found was pretty crazy. On the rear brakes of this car, I'm not sure exactly how it happened, but pretty much to explain it as quick as I can, we found the rear brake calipers, every time you touch the brake pedal, could roll 3 inches forward, back and forward, because of the way they were mounted. With these late models, you're pretty much supposed to go bolt, caliper, bracket, and the bracket's threaded, which will squeeze your caliper into place and not let it move. But this actually had bolt, bracket, caliper, and the caliper was just free sliding, moving wherever it wanted to. So pretty sketchy. I'm glad we found that and got it fixed up. Thanks to Travis for finding that for me, and I'll throw that clip in.
In this picture right here.
That's tight.
That bracket's
Oh, the
supposed
gear
to,
is threaded.
yeah, and it's supposed to be the other way on the inside, and the caliper goes through it. So
This
now
is-
the bolt's tight, and the
This is
caliper's just
upside
floating.
down. So you know what that's doing? That's going to bind that brake up.
Fuck
really
yeah,
bad.
because there's nothing holding the brake tight.
So along with bodies, when I got there this time, there was a few other people that were there to help me learn a few new things, and I kind of got lucky catching them at the right time. But my new friend Jason Turner, who's actually from the East Coast and runs Ace Speedway, for anyone that knows that area over there, he was there and was willing to help me actually figure out how to do a few new things, like cutting this hood for this car. All the hoods I've dealt with have just been what has come with it, and this was the first time I've ever actually bought myself a new hood, which seems pretty weird to say when I've been in the sport for, I don't know, going on 4 years now. But yeah, he was willing to dive in there and help me figure out the best tricks to get the hood exactly lined up for the best fitment, which I was actually pretty happy with by the time we finished it, and it sat on there pretty well. So For my first time, I got to give a big thanks to Jason for helping me out, but Jason's the one who actually does all the vinyl wraps on the cars. He wrapped that beautiful number 11 along with the 92 cars that they will be running actually this Thanksgiving weekend down at Tucson. So big shout out to him. Like I said, go check him out. He does a lot of really cool custom wraps. Super cool to work hand in hand with him, but that was really fun. So this time when I was up at Travis's, after waiting for parts to come in for a long while, he actually had one of his good friends, Scott, take care of the rear end for us that I mentioned earlier in the video. And he swapped that locker in for us. We got it back, and both Jason, my new friend that I met up there, along with Travis, helped me work this thing back into the car, and it went so much faster than it did taking that thing out. We got it exactly where we wanted it, and once we got everything all measured out and into place, everything kind of fell together pretty quickly, which I was kind of surprised, especially after taking it out by myself. But I guess, you know, like much of this goes, once you do it a couple times, you start picking up speed, and eventually it just becomes second nature. So these guys definitely knew what they were doing, helped me out and get this rear end back in the car, but it was just one step closer to that thing getting on the ground where it could roll, fire up, and drive out of that shop, which I was just so excited about. Well, at the end of all this, there was kind of one piece of the puzzle left that we put off just because we were so busy working on other things, but we ended up using a lot of pieces from one of Travis's old cars to kind of swap over to this car, whatever we could use just for, you know, purposes of money. Didn't have to pay for shipping or none of that. And so we were swapping over the headers and the exhaust, and most of it actually worked and fit well in this car, except we had to kind of reroute the exhaust. And so last little bit that we did the final night before it rolled out of the shop, Travis was kind enough to weld up the last little piece we needed to get the exhaust to the end, and then I went ahead and just slapped on our new side skirts and a nice exhaust plate that Jason helped me build. And if you guys can't tell, I've had a lot of really cool help on this car, and I just can't thank him enough. Well, I hate to kind of say it, but you know, as much as I love building this car, it's eventually got to come to an end, right? And so the morning that this was supposed to roll out of the shop, it was kind of it kind of had the perfect vibe to it, because I walked outside of the hotel and boom, there is snow everywhere for the first time I've been up there. And seeing that snow on the ground, we were chasing ourselves to get out of there before winter hit, and it was like, bam, the day it's supposed to go out, it's here. Let's get this thing rolling and out of that shop. And it was perfect, really. And so my dad and grandpa arrived shortly later. Big shout out to them for making the long haul from Washington State with the rig to actually tow this home. And when they got there, Travis helped me get the thing fired up for the first time so that they could hear it with their own ears, and that was just the most rewarding moment to hear that thing roar. Oh my God, what a beautiful sound. That has to be my favorite sound. I could listen to it on repeat as a lullaby all night long. Oh. But anyways, I'll throw in the clip here just so you can see it. When it finally came to an end, we loaded this thing up, got on the road, and my grandpa Jack, my dad Eric, and me, Eric Jr., we made the long haul back to Washington State just a day later after they got up there. And so I just can't thank them enough for making that kind of trip for me. But I just had so much fun building this, and the views on the way there and on the way home, so worth it. Everything about this car, just, it felt so right. So I was so happy to finally get in that trailer and roll out of there and head on our way home. Well, that night we rolled in pretty late, so didn't pick up the camera once we got home, just got things put away the best we could. But now I'm sitting here editing this video and I'm kind of sad because this was a really fun project to put together, especially this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the kind of new style that I tried to use for this one, and going forward hopefully I can incorporate it a little bit more. But yeah, we got this thing home back to Washington State. Now all that's left is get the wrap on it, get some sponsors on it, and we're ready to go racing, which I can't believe those words are coming out of my mouth after only having this car in the shop, I think a combined 44 days, and that's counting the days I wasn't even there, which was a few weeks. So to think this thing really came together in what was probably, I don't know, 15 days of work, a complete rebuild on everything besides the chassis, some body panels, and the tin inside the car itself. Pretty nuts. But none of it would have happened without Racing Dynamics, Travis Sharp, Amanda Sharp, Warren Simpson for helping me out, Jason Turner, Brian Herzog for his hand, Austin for being supportive when he was there. Everyone I've worked with up in Montana, you guys have been so awesome. So thank you so much for being a part of this. I will seriously never forget this process, and I think I'm gonna enjoy it just as much as I am driving it, which, I mean, it's crazy to say, but the amount I've learned, if anyone knows me personally, you know that learning is probably my favorite thing to do on any topic. So I really enjoyed this one. Unfortunately, I gotta end this one eventually, but I just want to thank you guys all for watching. If you watched it all the way through, please feel free to leave me a like down below, and if you want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button. But spring is coming soon. That's the only way to really look at it, is it's going to be here before we all know it, and this car will be on track and we'll be making content for you guys to enjoy. So make sure, if you want to see that, like I said, hit that subscribe button down below, and if you hit that like button, it lets me know that this is the kind of content you want to see, and I'll keep trying to make it for you guys. But I'll let you get out of here. Thank you so much for watching, and I guess until next time, guys, take it easy.